Hi, I'm Melissa and I'm a dietitian at Body Fusion, and today I'm going to be talking to you about mindful eating. So, what is mindful eating? Basically, it's a holistic movement that's about becoming more aware around the food that you're eating. It's about understanding why you're eating and becoming more aware of your hunger and satiety cues. It's about rating your hunger and using that as a guide to how much food you're going to eat and why you're eating that food. It's also about understanding other cues that might be leading you to think you're hungry or leading you to want to eat, like boredom, being tired, or just being emotional. It's also about being more aware of what you're actually eating and appreciating and embracing the food that's in front of you. So, in a mindful eating way, you wouldn't sit and have your meal in front of the television or whilst reading the newspaper. You would sit and fully embrace the food that's in front of you. So like I said, it's about tuning into your hunger and satiety cues. But you might be wondering what hunger actually is and how you can rate it. Some of the cues to listen out for are hunger pangs or growling in your tummy. You might also feel a sensation of emptiness in your tummy, or you might just be feeling a little bit lightheaded or not able to concentrate, or even a little bit irritable. So why is mindful eating actually important? To start with, it can help us to stop eating when we're feeling satisfied rather than overeating. It's also a really good way to manage food cravings because it can help you to understand why you're craving that food. It's also another good way to understand and respond to your body's cues in a non-judgmental way that's going to allow you to really eat in alignment with your own body. So like I said, it's about being able to stop when you're full. And a really good way to understand this is to use a scale. So what I like to do is to think about hunger we can picture a scale in our mind. So in the middle we would have 0. And at 0, that might be when you might have eaten an hour ago and you were completely satisfied with your meal, and now you're not even thinking about food. You're just concentrating on the task ahead and food's not on your mind at all. Then we have -5, which is where you might have skipped breakfast because you slept in and your alarm didn't go off, so you ran out the door with no food, and then you got to work and you had a crazy day full of meetings, and now it's 3 o'clock and you haven't eaten all day and you're so hungry that you could eat anything that you set your eyes on. So that's at -5. Then we have the other end of the scale at +5, which is what I like to call Christmas Day fullness. So you might have eaten 2 roast dinners, 1 at lunch, 1 at dinner time. You might have had 2 rounds of dessert, and now someone's about to bring out a packet of chocolates. And you're so full that you feel like you have to undo your belt buckle. So that's Christmas Day fullness. Now, of course, we never really want to get that full, but we also never want to get so hungry that we're at the other end of the scale. So even though this scale goes from -5 to +5, we really want to be sitting in the middle at around in between +3 and -3 rather than +5 and -5. And that way you're never going to get to the extremities of eating way too much food. So what does this all mean? Sometimes it can feel a little bit airy-fairy, but to put it into practice, we're going to do an activity. So what I want you to do now is just to take a minute to go and get something that might be in your handbag or at your desk. It might be a leftover Easter chocolate or just an apple or any type of food that you can have, so we can run through this activity. Alrighty. So the first step in this activity is to actually look at the food in front of you and really examine it. We're not eating it yet, we're just looking. You could appreciate what it looks like, what its textures are, what its colors are, and say it out loud. You know, say, I've got a red apple in front of me, it looks really smooth. You can describe your food in that way and really take a moment to appreciate the food that's in front of you. You could also think about appreciating the effort that someone else might have gone to get that food for you. The next step is smelling the food. So we're still not eating the food, we're just up to smelling the food. So take a smell of your food and notice what it smells like. Is it a really strong smell like a fresh herb, or a really weak smell like a food that maybe doesn't have much flavour? How could you describe this smell? Could you describe the flavours or the aromas that the smell brings to mind? And close your eyes and really think about the smell of that food. The next step is to action. So what we're going to do is just take a bite of the food, but don't chew. Just take a bite and put it in your mouth. And think about how that felt. What were the feelings on your lips? Was it soft, or was it hard, or was it crumbly? How did it feel when you put it in your mouth? The next step is to let it sit in your mouth. So we still haven't started chewing, it's just sitting in your mouth. And what do you notice? Is the food melting? Is it really soft? Or maybe it's really hard? What flavours can you pick up on from that food just sitting in your mouth? The next step is to finally start chewing the food and notice the texture of that food. Is it really crunchy like an apple might be? Or is it soft like a marshmallow? Notice as you're chewing the differences in flavours that come through as that food is breaking down, and really pick up on each of those different flavours. Think about where you're tasting those flavours in your mouth. Is it on the top of your tongue? Where are you tasting those flavours? The next step is to actually listen to yourself as you're chewing the food, because this is a really pleasurable experience to eat food. So take a moment to really listen to how you're eating. The next step is to just enjoy chewing and finish chewing the mouthful. You might like to count how many times you chew. Really enjoy the flavour that the food is giving you. The next step is to swallow the food and really notice what a coordinated movement this is between all of the muscles in your mouth. The last step is to finish the food slowly by repeating all of those steps mouthful after mouthful. And that's the end of our mindful eating exercise. So hopefully you can see that that's a really useful and beneficial way to be more aware of the food that you're eating, and it can help you to understand your different levels of hunger or satiety whilst you're eating, because it really does slow that eating process down. So there you have it, mindful eating for you. Happy eating!